Previously on CoinKit, we have created a Docker image that contains the Bitcoin software as well as the tools required to build it. We have executed autogen, configure, and make, and have built Bitcoin D and have successfully executed it. Along the way, we did unfortunately destroy Vulkan, but you know how it goes. If you want to make an omelet, you have to break some eggs. This is a humble beginning, but we still have a lot of work ahead of us. In today's episode, I want to figure out how to take the next step and figure out how to hook up Bitcoin D to a graphical debugger. In order to do this, we're going to make some changes to our Docker file. In fact, we're going to make so many changes, we're going to just start with a brand new one. But first, a few words about debuggery. As you have probably noticed before, a graphical debugger is a great tool to enable us to execute the lines of code in our program one at a time. At each step, we can also view the contents of the various relevant variables. In this way, we can carefully explore the operation of our program and frequently gain insight into its care and feeding. In order to do this, we're going to make use of two very handy tools. The first tool is called GDB. That's the GNU debugger. It's a very common tool in the world of Unix. In case you're wondering, you can find some insight into the correct pronunciation of GNU at this link on the screen. This tool gives us the basic capacity for debugging. We can use GDB to launch our program or even attach to a currently running process. We can then set breakpoints, step through our program, examine the contents of variables and all that. But this is a command line tool. Only its mother loves it, and even she probably doesn't. Maybe it doesn't even have a mother.
Not even a mother.
The second tool is a handy Python app named GDB GUI. Maybe that's GUI for GDB. This will wrap GDB and communicate via HTTP with anything else that speaks HTTP, such as maybe your browser. Because it's rather tedious to deal with graphics from within a Docker container, I'll sidestep that for now. Fortunately, that's not a problem, because we can already use a browser of choice running on our host system. Through the miracle of Docker networking, GDB GUI will easily communicate with your browser. Okay, so enough talk. Time for action. Let's create a new Docker file. Let's call it dockerfile.debug, and let's put it in our trusty CoinKit Bitcoin directory. Let's start with Alpine Linux is an extremely slim version of Linux. Learning to deal with this will enable us to build rather compact Docker images. Alpine uses a package manager called APK. In order for APK to know where anything is, we have to update it first. And while we're here, let's also install Git. You may recall autoconf, automake, and libtool from our previous example. We need these here also. You may also recall that we need some of the boost libraries. Alas, we can't pick and choose the dev versions of the individual packages in Alpine. But no need to do that. Let's just use the full edition. This is no big deal. You may also recall that we need a few other packages, so let's install them now. Now it's time to clone the repo. I remind you again that there's nothing special about this particular commit. I just happen to know that it works well enough for our purposes here. And now it's time to build this. First, AutoGen. Then configure. The with debug flag configures the build to build the executables with debug information, but without optimization. And, as with our prior example, we disable wallet functionality because we don't want to get distracted by that right now. And now it's make time. Recall that v=1 adds extra verbose output. Perhaps now we could save the Docker file, build the image, and run it. But we already know how to do that. So let's continue on a little bit further and install some tools of debuggery next. This is actually pretty easy. We can guess what GDB and Python dev are. Actually, that's Python 2. We already have Python 3 installed from the prior build tools. pypip provides pip, which is a package manager for Python. We need this because GDB GUI is a Python package, and this is how we will install it. Next, let's invoke pip to install GDB GUI. Okay, now that's it. You know the drill. Let's save this file. Open a terminal window centered on the directory that contains this Docker file, and don't forget the trailing dot. This command is going to build a Docker image named CoinKit Bitcoin with a tag of debug. The F flag tells Docker to use dockerfile.debug instead of the ordinary Dockerfile default. Okay, there it goes. While this cranks, please allow me to briefly discuss the with debug flag we saw a moment ago. As you may recall or might imagine, the debugger will work better if we can include in Bitcoin D extra information about symbol names. You know, things that have names, such as variables, functions, all that. But all this extra information significantly bloats the size of the executable, so we don't necessarily always want this. And, as you may recall or might imagine, the compiler can play many tricks with the code in order to optimize it. For example, maybe we want the code to compile as fast as possible, or maybe we want the resulting code to execute as quickly as possible, or maybe we want the resulting executable to be as small as possible. So many tricks available. But when you apply these optimizations, you're not likely to retain the debugging information, and the debugger will not execute the code in the way you might expect it to. Many things get optimized out, and this causes endless and needless confusion, and maybe even
game damage.
One final consideration is that the default build configuration specifies debug symbols and optimization. I'm not sure how that's supposed to work, but I think it's stuff like this that drove poor old HAL 9000 nuts. Well, it looks like this worked. Let's crank it up. Da-da-da-da! What happened? Well, you'll just have to wait until next time to find out. Thanks for watching. Well, that's all for today, folks. Please be sure to come back soon for the next episode of
The CoinKit Chronicles.